Hey guys, it's Marie Nicole here again, and I'm making a really fun card today for Brutus Monroe. These are their new stamps for the Carson collection, and I just thought this little mummy guy was really cute, and I had some ideas of how to put a card together, so I just went for it. I'm taking some of my black VersaFine black onyx ink, and I'm inking up my stamp, and then I'm trying to line it up here so you get a nice shot of my hair. Sorry for that, but I'm trying to line it up because I did sort of draw a little box of where I want my stamp to go because I have a frame I'm going to be putting around it. So anyway, here's a little look at the stamp. I've zoomed in so you can kind of watch how I'm coloring it, and I have really sped up this video because the coloring did take a little bit of time, and I know you didn't want to be sitting here for hours watching me color. So I'm taking some of this Brutus Monroe chalk ink, and this is the color aubergine, and I'm just kind of quickly putting on some color. I'm not a professional colorer, so I'm just kind of putting my color on really lightly, but I am going to go back over some of those more shadowy spots and adding a little bit more color. So you kind of get a little bit of a shadows here and there and a few little bit highlights, but like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm kind of just going with whatever I think looks good. I'm just coloring this mummy's wraps with the aubergine color. I thought the purple would look really well with the whole color scheme that's going to be going on with this card. And I just really love this aubergine anyway. It's just a really nice purple, and like I'm doing, you can mix it with a little bit of water and kind of do some watercoloring with it. And now for some of those bones on the mummy that's kind of peeking out there from behind the wraps, I'm using some Distress ink in the color of antique linen. It just gives it a really sort of a light kind of color there, and I noticed I missed one of his little wraps, so I went back for it with some of that aubergine to just kind of fill that in. And now I'm taking some pumice stone Distress ink and coloring in the little camera here that he's got on the selfie stick. I just thought that was so hilarious just to see a mummy holding a selfie stick. I just love that stamp. Anyway, so here I have a little bit of tattered rose. I'm using it for his tongue. I didn't want to go with a too bright of a red because I just didn't think that would fit in with the rest of the color scheme. So now I have my mummy all colored, and I'm taking some of this cabbage Brutus Monroe chalk ink, and I'm using one of these distressed ink blending tools and using it to kind of blend on some of this ink all around the edges. And you can see this ink really works well for this blending technique, which is great because it's one of my favorite techniques to use is with the blending tools. I just love that soft look it gives it. And so I'm just kind of inking up all around the edges and leaving sort of a white border around this mummy, and I just loved how it turned out. It kind of gives the mummy some kind of an eerie glow that I thought just worked really well for Halloween. Now I'm giving you a close-up look of some of these Spooky Nights printable digital pictures. You can find these on Brutus Monroe's website, and I'm showing you here it's got a few little tick marks so that when you line it up with your paper trimmer you can just line it up and get a really nice cut. Once you cut them down, they are a 6x6 measured paper, so it's kind of like a 6x6 inch paper pad. So I just printed it on some plain white cardstock. Just printed it off with my Canon printer, and it works really well. You get a really nice image. Now I'm taking my card base, just scoring it and folding it over. And I'm going to be kind of starting to layer some of my pieces on here. So you can see I took my pattern paper and just kind of cut it down to very slightly smaller than my card base. I knew I kind of wanted it to just cover the whole card base, so I cut it down to size. I'm taking some locomotive ink from Brutus Monroe and another little ink blending tool here. I'm putting a piece of scratch paper behind so I don't have to worry about cleaning up my work area. And I'm just going to ink the edges. I just thought it needed a little bit of aging around the edges instead of just that stark white kind of cut edge. I just like to put a little bit of color around the edge here and there. And this locomotive, it's kind of a bluish gray, and it worked really well with this color scheme. I mean, everything worked together just right to kind of pull off this card. So I'm kind of getting my pieces ready to layer here. I'm going to be putting this little frame around my mummy. I cut this out from my Cricut machine. It kind of looks like a little Polaroid frame, so I thought that worked really well with the whole selfie photos kind of theme. And I'm taking my Tombow dot runner stamp runner adhesive, and I'm running some around the back side, and I'm just going to line it up and stick this frame onto my mummy. Just making sure I got them lined up. So this is why I had a little box drawn around where I was going to stamp my image in the beginning, because I wanted to make sure I got him kind of centered in this frame. So now I've got the sentiment from the stamp set. This one says Spooky Selfie, and I just thought it was really cute. I'm going to be stamping it sort of off to the side using some more of that VersaFine Black Onyx ink. Just holding it there to kind of let the ink soak into the paper so I get a nice crisp image. And now I'm taking some pumice stone distress ink, and I want to sort of distress the edges of this Polaroid frame, and I'm testing it on a piece of scratch paper first of all to make sure it's the color that I want and that I think it'll look good. And so I was pretty happy with that color, so I went ahead and just kind of rubbed some on all of the edges. I kind of put more on the corners to make it a little bit darker in the corners, but I just went around all of at the edges here with some of that pumice stone distress ink. It's just a really light gray, and I thought it just gave a nice distressed look to the whole card. I didn't want just a plain white frame. I wanted to make it stand out just a little bit. So I'm just making sure I get all the edges colored a little bit. I didn't want to do too much because I did want that frame to be mostly white with a little bit of distress around the edges. Now I'm taking my ATG and I'm just going to be adhering this pattern paper down to my card base. I just want to line it up so I can get it on there straight. And just pushing it down so it sticks well. And I'm liking how my little spooky selfie Polaroid picture is looking there. I did put a few pieces of scratch paper behind there to kind of hold it all together and make it a little bit thicker. And now I'm taking some of this Kids Craft foam, and I'm using this. I'm going to be adhering it to the back of this little Polaroid just to kind of pop it up off the page. I like to do that if I'm using a big piece that I want popped up, and that way I can save myself a little bit of foam adhesive instead of using a ton of it. So now I'm kind of putting together a little bit of a string tangle behind my little mummy Polaroid here. I just thought it would be nice to have some kind of embellishment coming from behind the little Polaroid. So I put a little bit of my ATG adhesive down, and I'm just using that to hold all of my strings in place and kind of just wrapping them up in a tangle off to the side. This is kind of the easiest way I've learned to do a string tangle. Takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of moving those strings around to kind of get it to look right, but you just have to fiddle with it a little bit, get it to where you want it. And it's really easy if you just put some adhesive down and just stick it all on there. So that's kind of what I'm doing, just moving it around. Once I got it to where I thought I liked it, I just cut that string and made sure it was stuck down onto the cardstock well. So now I'm taking some washi tape, I'm folding it over on itself, and then I'm going to be taking my scissors and cutting sort of a flag or banner shape on the end. I just thought it would be nice to put a little something more along with that string, something more for a focal point there. So I'm making these little washi tape flags and just sticking them off the side. I'm going to be kind of sticking them down onto that adhesive, but they don't stay really well. So I did also, you'll see here in a moment, I did also grab my stapler and I just added a staple off to the side. I think a stapler can sometimes be a really fun and easy way to get your embellishments to stay down, especially if you're doing something like this or if you're doing like ruffles or something. Don't be afraid to use a stapler. It adds a little something more interesting to your cards, and it's really easy. So once I had my little flags there, there's my stapler. I'm just going to put a little staple to hold everything down together. And then the last part to this card would just be to adhere that little spooky selfie down with my kids' craft foam. So I hope you enjoyed this card. I had a lot of fun making it, and I absolutely love this little stamp from the Carson collection over at Brutus Monroe. You can see it goes really well with all the inks. It goes well with the digital papers, and it's a really fun little Halloween card. So if you're interested in any of these products, just head over to Brutus Monroe. They have a ton of stuff there in their shop that's a lot of fun. So thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you again in the future. Bye.